Hello and welcome to Fork in Politics. I'm Kalvin Chapman, your host. Today we're going to look at the issue of Black Lives Matter and why I'm quite horrified by some of the more recent things that they've done. So let's get into this. So everything I say today in this video, all of the citations for what I'm saying and the links to some of the things that I quote here and some of the articles and commentary that I'm talking about, they are all down in the description, or they are on the website, and I'll put a link to the website page here. This is a contentious issue, and when I'm talking about this, I'm only talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and nothing else. I'm sure there will be quite a few people that will want to read into it and assume that I'm talking about something else. I'm not. Sorry. In England from 1772, it was effectively illegal to have slaves. That was formalised into the Abolition of Slavery Act 1833. I'm going to have to read this next bit because I want to make sure I get it right. Passed on Congress on 31st of January 1865 and ratified on December the 6th, 1865. 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States and provides that, open quotes, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So 1865 is when slavery was abolished in the United States. The problem was they lived in a divided society. Black people were quite literally second-class citizens. They had their own schools, they had their own drinking fountains, which I think is one of the most popular, iconic figures of how American society lived. And, slavery may have been abolished, but black people who were brought to America for the purposes of slavery were treated as second-class citizens, and it was outrageous. It carried on until the 1950s. Well, it carried on until the 1960s, but it carried on until the 1950s when Rosa Parks was selected to challenge everything through the courts, which she did, and she was such a perfect candidate for challenging the law. But we can see in the United States and throughout the West, including Europe and in England, things have progressed. In America, between 2008 and 2016, there was a black president. You can't get any higher office in the United States than that. There are most certainly issues with racism, especially in the South of America, but things have progressed. I would say racism in the UK isn't a substantially serious issue, though it's still an issue and it's an ongoing daily issue. In the States, it's worse than in England. In the States, racism is a fact of life, and it is daily, and it is quite often apparent. The Ku Klux Klan, as stupid as they are, they still seem to ferment away in the background in the States. So when we think of Rosa Parks and we think of the American Civil Rights Movement, we always think of one person, Martin Luther King. And I don't know about anywhere else, but whenever I think of Martin Luther King, I think of one thing. I think of that speech, "I had a dream." So I'm going to play some excerpts. I'm not cutting out anything from his speech for any other reason other than I am making a point with some of the things that he said. So please excuse that it's not the full speech. It goes on for a while and people have seen it. I just want to make this specific point which I take from the extracts of his speech. So what was the speech about? What did he specifically say that is of interest? He said that he wanted black and white people to live equally amongst each other. He wanted a person, his children, to be judged on the depth of their character and not on the colour of their skin. And that, that's the takeaway point from his entire speech. When you're trying to interact with somebody, that interaction should be based upon the depth of your character. It should never be judged upon the colour of your skin. And that, for what I'm about to discuss, is the most important point of this video. So what am I rattling on about? I'm rattling on about Black Lives Matter. They came along, and I can understand why they came along. As I said earlier on, there is still a problem with racism in the United States. So I can fully understand Black Lives Matter. And as much as I do think all lives matter, I do understand and I do appreciate why they get pissed off that people keep butting in with, well, all lives matter. The fact is there is a problem with racism. So I do appreciate and I do understand the concept behind Black Lives Matter. So they've come along and they are trying to change society. And that's the bit that pisses me off. They're trying to change society by bringing back segregation. And that I just cannot comprehend, fathom, or understand the principles behind. Why would you want segregation? I never thought that in the current year, 2017, I would never have thought to have seen this in the last 30 years, but I would never have thought to see somebody go on television, other than somebody from the Ku Klux Klan, and explain why segregation is the right thing to do. And yet that's what we're seeing on the television. Political commentators explaining why we should segregate blacks from white. That is mind blown. I don't understand. So again, you might say, what am I waffling on about? Nobody wants segregation. Well, Harvard University, they now do blacks only graduations. That is, they do their graduation based not upon the depth of the character of the students, or indeed what subject they studied or what grade they got for passing. No, they are basing your ability to get into this graduation ceremony based solely upon the colour of your skin. That's Harvard. But the real Harvard, this isn't a spoof. This is the actual Harvard University, one of the greatest universities in the world. They are regularly in the top 10 in the world, and they base your ability to get into their graduation based solely upon the colour of your skin and not the content of your character. That is just disgusting. The one that started me off on investigating this so that I could consider it and look at it was Black Lives Matter Memorial Day celebrations. You're only allowed in if you're black. So their celebrations is based not upon the depth or content of your character and your belief in their movement, your backing of their movement. That's all entirely irrelevant. The only consideration as to whether you can go to their celebration or not is the colour of your skin. Somebody explained that to me. There was a lady, Lisa Durden. She's a political commentator, and when she was asked to explain how bringing back segregation is a good thing, her response was, "Oh, boo-hoo." She couldn't explain how it's a good thing that Martin Luther King's "I want you to consider my children based upon the content of their character and not the colour of their skin." That's out the window. Now it's the exact opposite. They now want to decide who's in or who's out and who can support them and who can't support them, not based upon the content of their character or the depth of their character or why they're supporting the group. No, the only thing that matters is the colour of skin, and that disgusts me. I hope to God they never ever make it in the UK, because I don't ever want to see segregation brought to the UK. We never had it previously, only the States had it. That kind of politics is vile and disgusting, and I hope that they are never allowed to come to this country with that vile racism. And when I was looking, I was very surprised at the University of California. They have housing for students. And once again, it doesn't matter how much you can pay. It doesn't matter what you're studying. It doesn't matter the content of your character or the depth of your character. All that matters is the colour of your skin for their student housing. They are creating segregation where whites and blacks are segregated and are not allowed to mix. And again, put it down in the comments. How on earth can bringing segregation back help anything other than a few tantrums from these Black Lives Movement people that hate white people to such an extent that they are a mirror image of the Ku Klux Klan and the evil that went with them. We think of the Ku Klux Klan and we think evil, but I can't see that Black Lives Matter is doing anything different than the Ku Klux Klan. You are essentially saying that the only thing that matters is the colour of skin and nothing else in this world matters. Well, you're evil. You are out and out evil. We look at the UK and yes, there is still problems with racism, but in the 1940s, after the war, we invited our Commonwealth colleagues and neighbours to come and help rebuild Britain. And the Caribbean, lots and lots of people came from the Caribbean. And today, in 2017, we have the Notting Hill Carnival to celebrate everything that is Caribbean. Sikhs came over from India. They fought massively in the war and they came over to help us rebuild this country. And after the Islamic murder in Manchester, where 22 people were blown up by a psychopath, because he believed that his religion wanted him to do that, on the night, Uber, the taxi people, they just ramped up their prices. The Sikh taxi drivers went out and gave free lifts to children to get them home safely. A couple of days later, or was it a week later, there was a big meeting in Albert Square where, it was packed. There were thousands of people there that were there to show, we're united against Islamic murder. And I'll never forget it, that the Sikh community set up a load of tables and they had food and drink and they were giving it out for free to people. And they did exactly the same thing when there was the Islamic murder in London shortly afterwards. And within 2 weeks, Islamists had murdered God knows how many people. And the Sikh community was there to really help protect people and to help the cleanup afterwards. And that's what it means to live in a society where we all look after each other. Now, I can't imagine wanting to live in a society where I don't think, how can we help each other? I think, what is the colour of your skin? And if it's the right colour, I might help you. That's just disgusting. But that's exactly what Black Lives Matter wants. They want segregation. You know, Rosa Parks didn't do what she did so that some spoilt trust fund kids in 2017 can start creating exactly what she fought to get rid of. I can't imagine that Martin Luther King would be delighted that the children of his children's children are having to face a country where the colour of their skin is the only thing that matters to these people, not the content of their character or the depth of their character or what they're going to do or what they can do as a community. No, it only matters what the colour of their skin is. And that is why I think Black Lives Matter is a movement for evil. They are no different to the Ku Klux Klan and all of the evil that went with that. And I'm sorry, I've seen them getting violent. I've seen the things they say. They absolutely disgust me. So that's the end of the video. Do put your comments below, because this is an important issue where we're relatively at the start of this movement. And do we want a movement where they base what they do upon the colour of your skin? And if you've got the wrong skin colour, then they're going to get violent with you. Do we really want people like that in this country? I don't. They absolutely, again, I can't help but say it. They are exactly like the Ku Klux Klan. And everybody's always viewed the Ku Klux Klan as being a bunch of morons who commit acts of evil. And I don't see that Black Lives Matter's doing anything different. So please do put your comments down in the comments. Okay, many thanks. Bye bye.